Joining me now, as he does every Saturday night during the LawCall season, in one form or another, our good friend, our favorite judge, Mr. Matthew Metier. Good to see you again, brother.
Thank you, Kenny.
Man, all about injury. This is, to be honest, this is just something that you and Jim, this is what y'all do very, very well.
Absolutely in our wheelhouse. That's what we do every day, day in, day out for sure. And Kenny, and what I want to hit today, and hopefully we'll have a question on this, is, you know, I really encourage everyone when they're looking for a personal injury attorney to, to interview your lawyer. You know, I mean, what you should learn by watching this show is not every lawyer does every kind of work, and only certain lawyers, specialize in personal injury. So it's not rude, it's not, it's not mean to talk to your lawyer and say, hey, is this the kind of work you do?
Sure.
And just so everyone has a good experience.
Starting the new show and starting the new season, of course, we've got to have the A-team. And to my right and to your left, on the TV dial, Mr. Jim Reeves, the Bulldog, back in, buddy. Appreciate you coming in tonight. It's kind of our tradition here.
Always.
9 years in a row starting here. We very big email question come through this week. Very serious one, and the guys chose this one. Wanted to get this one out. This is from Kelly. She writes, my grandmother was broadsided by a lady who admitted to running a stop sign. One friend was killed instantly, and my grandmother later died. What legal rights do I have? Kelly, thank you so much for the email question of the week. I can see why you didn't want to call in on this one. Matt, serious question, serious issue here.
I mean, no more serious than that, and I'm certainly sorry. It's a tough way to start the year, but those tragedies happen, and Kenny, we see it all the time on the roadways, and I tell you, I'm such a careful driver just because, it's what Jim and I deal with on a daily basis, but putting that aside, very difficult question. This is exactly the kind of area that Jim and I specialize in. First of all, there's a wrongful death statute in Mississippi, which kind of outlines your kind of recovery, but this is the kind of case you need kind of all hands on deck. We've talked about it before, particularly 18-wheelers, big cars, they have kind of quick reaction teams that'll come out on the defense side and talk to witnesses. So you've really got to kind of that's exactly the kind of case you need a very experienced lawyer with the resources to send out people on your behalf.
Jim?
Absolutely. And really, the key mistake that I see most people make in this circumstance is that they wait or delay contacting an attorney or hiring an attorney in situations like this, and understandably so. You're grieving, you have a friend that's hurt, you want her to recuperate, and people say, well, I'll handle that later, I'll look at that later. But the problem is when you do that, especially with big truck accidents, the other side is working immediately. They've secured evidence that's favorable to you in your case goes away, and it makes it much more difficult later. The smart thing to do is basically go ahead and contact an attorney. The attorney handles it, does the investigation, preserves what he needs to in terms of evidence, and then when you basically come up for air 3 or 4 months later after you're through with the grieving process, funeral's been completed, somebody's out of the hospital, then you sit down and take a look at the case, and the case is complete, and you're in the best possible position to recover what you're entitled to recover. And that's the critical mistake I see most people make in these circumstances is, they don't want to deal with this, they've got a lot to deal with, but let the attorney deal with it. Don't neglect it, because in the end, it usually costs the case.
Sure, yeah. If you're dealing with the death of a friend and your grandmother, it would be tough.
Goodness.
Matt, would there be a criminal side possibly with this, with the running of the stop sign?
There's a lot of that, Kenny. There's an estate side, because you have a death.
Oh, that's true.
There's a personal injury side and potentially a criminal side. So, there is a lot of times you see an intersection between personal injury and criminal actions. So yeah, there's just a lot on the plate there, and really that's a lot for an email question. And so that's somebody that needs to talk to a lawyer.
Our great producer did let me know that Larry was going to talk about, in general, nothing in particular, workman's comp and how you go about working through workman's comp.
Let me begin.
Please,
Where
Matthew.
do I start?
Jim, do you want this one or you want to throw it to Matt?
Matthew's the comp king.
Comp king.
Thank you, Jim.
Wow.
Anyway, listen, a couple of things critical. One is the reporting aspect of it, because let me just tell you, there's immediate conflict. If you're a worker and you get hurt on the job, there's, you don't want to be that guy or that girl, right? You're a team player, you like your job, you don't want to get fired, so there's almost an incentive not to report. But the problem is, you get hurt on the job, you may not realize how serious it is, and it may only manifest later how serious it is. And then they say, well, you didn't report it, pal, so you're out of luck. So it is your right. You have to do it. Do not be discouraged. Don't allow them to talk you out of it. Make sure you document your injuries, so if something happens later, you have it all in writing and they can't contest it. That's probably one of the biggest issues in workers' comp they have starting off the block.
Jim, your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly right, and the reason for it is, it's a no-fault statute, which is what
Right.
it means is if you can prove that you were hurt in the course and scope of your employment on your job, you're entitled to recover. And so the critical issue a lot of times is, were you hurt on the job? And so if it's not documented early on, and 6 months later you come back and try to make a claim, it becomes difficult.
Come in
to
here
prove.
from Dee from Past Christiane. She didn't want to go on air, but Jim, she did have a question. She is concerned. She has taken a medicine, and the side effect has really. The medicine was for something else, but the side effect of the medicine she's feared has really damaged her kidney, and she was wondering what kind of options does she have there?
Serious problem. Hopefully you're okay, Dee. The first thing you do, obviously, you want to go to a competent doctor.
Right.
Get evaluated and a diagnosis. Look, you see these all the time, advertisements late at night.
Yeah.
But about defective drugs or defective medical devices. But there's a real problem. The FDA, people would be stunned at the number of drugs and how little some of them are studied before they're put on the market. And they injure people, and sometimes very severely, sometimes kill people. And so what I would do if I were you, Dee, threshold, go to my doctor, obtain a diagnosis. If you have a problem, talk to your doctor about whether it may or may not be related to a drug that you've been taking. And if you're not sure, contact our office. There are a lot of other attorneys that do this, and talk to them about it. A lot of times these drugs are on a recall list.
Right.
Attorneys who do this kind of work will be aware of drugs that are becoming a problem, but maybe not, there hadn't been a recall yet. So if you talk to an attorney who handles these kind of things regularly, they can usually point you in the right direction.
Right. Matt, your thoughts?
That's exactly right, and let me just tell you that's another reason you've got to interview your lawyer, because
Right.
that is that kind of drug stuff. It's really a specialty within a specialty within
Right.
a specialty,
Right.
and so getting to the right law firm, that's always going to be tricky, but absolutely.
And there's a series of drugs out there right now where damage to the kidneys is the primary side effect.
That's right.
So this
Invocaina. Now, there's
you
something
kind
out
of
there,
used
right?
something you knew
Absolutely.
about this, Jim.
Absolutely.
We've heard about this. Oh, yeah.
You may very
Oh,
well
yeah.
have a case, and you probably ought to call the
Talking
office.
about it, and it's certainly been in the headlines this week, and we
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to take a minute. Jim, just a quick update perhaps on the Singing River pension litigation and settlement.
As you know, we've been involved in this, from the get-go. A difficult situation, not a lot of great solutions. We hammered out a settlement that was approved by really every judge that's looked at it, and every attorney that's looked at it, other than a couple, that provided basically up to 81% recovery of the pension plan, which is unheard of in this kind of litigation. Most of the time when you have pension plans go belly up, they basically divide up the money and send everybody home. And so we had a supplemental hearing basically this past week. Went really, really well. Judge Garola, who heard the case, issued a really quick order. The fund is desperately in need of being receiving payments, which are being held until the settlement becomes final. And so we hope to have a quick resolution of that so that funding can begin. The delay has already cost the pension plan millions of dollars at this point, and we hope to avoid any other delays if at all possible.
Okay.
See, as part of the settlement, Kenny, the hospital's making payments, but it's just being held in trust
Right.
until the settlement's finalized. So it can't take advantage of the SNCC stock market and things like that. So
Right.
quicker the better, for sure. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Something we'll keep you updated here on LawCall. The end of the show. I know it. 41 more to go for the season, so we're off.
It'll fly by. It'll fly by.
We'll be back next week. We're going to go over Ask Us Anything. So if you
Anything.
didn't get a chance to call us tonight, it's all on the table for you next week. But until then, my friends, good night.